Hey guys, Effie here. Today I'm going to show you how I made this watercolor die cut card using our Poinsettia garden background stamp and our holiday word dies. So first I'm just going to prep my watercolor panel with some anti-static powder tool because we're going to heat emboss the image onto the panel. And the anti-static powder tool is going to help you to make sure that the powders only stick to where you want it to stick, meaning the imprinted image. So next I'm just going to lay my panel over my Poinsettia garden background stamp, and then I'm going to use my Speedball Baron to help me get an even impression on my watercolor panel. Next, I'm just going to spoon on some gold glitter embossing powder all over my panel, and I'm just making sure to hold onto my panel at the edges to make sure that I don't smudge any of the embossing ink or get any of the embossing powder onto my hands, ruining the image. Then I'm going to apply some heat to my entire panel. Make sure to heat up your heat gun for about 10 to 15 seconds before you apply it to your panel to minimize warping. Then I'm just going to take several color bursts. I'm starting with some alizarin crimson, and I'm going to use my aqua water brush to paint all of my poinsettias. So I'm just going to put down the first base layer of my red color onto my poinsettias, and I'm using the I guess a dry technique. I'm just going directly from the watercolor onto my dry watercolor paper, and this is a technique that I'm using for this poinsettia. When I color in my second poinsettia right above this one, I'm going to wet the watercolor paper first and then add color, but I will explain that when I get to that poinsettia. For this one, after I put down that first base layer of alizarin crimson, I'm going to just add shading with a darker red color burst, and I'm using the Merlot color burst for the shading here. If you're unsure of where to add the shading, just follow the curves in your floral image. If you see the smaller poinsettias, they represent the petals that are in front of the larger poinsettias in the back. So anywhere that you see the curves from the smaller petals, you just want to add some shading where you see those curves. So next I'm going in with another technique. I am putting down water onto my poinsettia first, and then I'm going to add color. There is a little bit of color in my water, so that's why you see that there is a little bit of that rosy tint to my water, but I didn't actually dip my paintbrush into the color. It's just the color that was left over from painting that first poinsettia. After I painted the entire poinsettia with my alizarin crimson, I went in with the Merlot color burst to add shading. The only difference that I saw was with this technique was that the paper was a little bit more wet, so the Merlot blended a little bit better, but I didn't really see too much of a difference in the dried images, so I painted the rest of the panel directly with the watercolor, and instead of wetting the paper and then going in with the color, because it was just easier and less time consuming. I'm just going to turn on some music as I paint the rest of the panel, so enjoy the video and I will come back in a few minutes. watercoloring my panel, I set it aside for a day to completely dry. You don't have to put it aside that long. I just kind of finished painting and decided to work on it the next day. So once it was completely dry, I took the largest die from our double stitched rectangles and I die cut our panel to add some stitching to the edges. And then I also die cut the middle portion of my panel with our holiday word dies. The holiday word dies comes with two different, I guess, sentiments. You can choose the Merry and Bright sentiment or the Merry Christmas. For today's card, I use the Merry and Bright sentiment. After I die cut my panel with the word dies, I made sure to save all of the inner pieces within the words because I'm going to use that for our project. You can save the sentiment for a later project, which is what I'm probably going to do. It has a nice watercolor effect, so you don't want to throw away your sentiments after you die cut them from this panel. So I went ahead and adhered the watercolor panel onto a side folding A2 size card base, and then I'm going to adhere all of the inner pieces of my word dies onto the card base. So what you get is the negative portion of the die cut sentiment showing through because of that stark black card base. After I finished assembling the panel, I'm going to finish off the card by adding some matte gold sequins in a visual triangle around my sentiment, and that will complete my project for today. I hope you guys enjoyed my video for today. I really had some fun doing some controlled watercoloring with today's poinsettia card panel. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.